with you from A to Z PT.com. Thank you for tuning in today. I wanted to speak to you about something called lower cross syndrome. Lower cross syndrome did not mean to be too dramatic, but this is something that we really have to take a look at. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I see it so frequently now. And what lower cross syndrome is, if you can imagine, and you really have to imagine that this is a side view of your body, a side view. This is the front of the body, this is the back, and lower cross, it's an X, it's a cross, that's what it's referring to. That comes right across our hips, pelvic, lower back, into our lower trunk area. So there's the cross, and what's happening on this side, on this line of the cross, is we're getting a lot of tightness. Specifically, muscle groups are tightening in the hip flexors, these guys here, hip flexors, and a group of muscles that are called the erector spinae. So those muscles are getting really tight with this lower cross syndrome. And on the other line, the other side of the cross, we have muscles getting really weak. And up here we have our abs, our abdominal muscles are getting weak. And then on the other side of this line, we have our glutes. Our glutes are getting very weak. So we have this imbalance that's starting. And what happens with the imbalance is it really affects our posture. So that the hip flexors are taking us forward, they're tightening up and pulling our pelvis forward. And then to combat that, the erector spinae, because we don't want to walk around like this, they compensate, and they start to tighten, and so they start to pull us back. So in essence, our hips are going forward, and our lower back is going excessively back. And so we get into this posture, and while that's occurring, again, we're generating all this weakness in those strong stabilizer muscles that are supposed to keep us in a neutral position. So if you can think of it from the viewpoint of your spine, so here's, say this is your head up here, if you can see that, and then your spine is actually getting more of a curve in the lower portion because those erector spinae are getting so tight. Your pelvis, your hips are coming forward, and again, this puts us in a posture where our hips are drawn forward and our lumbar back, our lower back is straightening excessively. And over time, not only muscular wise is that going to cause problems, but it's going to start to affect our joints and our hips. It can affect your hips, your lower back, your discs. It can affect your knees, it spans the entire body. When we get into this type of lower cross syndrome, it can affect the whole body. The head up top, your head will start to protract, will start to protrude forward, and so it gets into really, it's an entire chain reaction when we get this type of syndrome, the tightness and then the imbalance with the weakness. And like I said earlier, I see this so often now, and I think we can point to mainly our lifestyles now. I mean, if you think about it, I think I read, don't quote me on this, but I think we sit now for basically 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours a day. So you figure you're sleeping maybe 6 to 8 hours a day. So that does not leave much time that we're actually standing up and trying to straighten our spine. So you can see if we're sitting all day, how we can start to fall into this type of imbalance where the hip flexors are tightening, the erector spinae are tightening, and then the stabilizers, the muscles, the postural muscles that can really help us are getting weaker and weaker. And this type of pattern just continues, and pretty soon, again, we're going to have breakdown in our joints, in our discs, in our back. I think so many problems that I see as a physical therapist, so much of that could be remedied or rectified by just trying to get people out of this lower cross syndrome. If we can correct that, a lot of those problems in the knees and the ankles and the lower back, in the shoulders, the rotator cuffs, the neck, I think much of that could be alleviated, could possibly be decreased to the point where much of those aches and pains are abolished, are no longer there. So lower cross syndrome, again, muscular imbalance, postural imbalance leads to structural breakdown is the end result, chronic pain leading to surgeries. I mean, it's just a mess. Then we start taking pain medications, and the severity of it just builds and builds. So we have to get out of this lower cross syndrome. We have to break this pattern in order to alleviate these symptoms. If you do have symptoms as I've described, lower back, knee, hip, ankle, neck, shoulder, please, I would be happy to help you. If you want to shoot me an email, I'll put my email below. There's so many simple guidelines, I guess we could call them, simple guidelines or a protocol that you can start to initiate today that can start to break through this lower cross syndrome and get you into a position, a posture where so much of that stress can be relieved from our body. So again, if you're having stress to your body, if you're having aches and pains, boy, I would look here first to this lower cross syndrome, because again, it's happening so often. Our lifestyles are dictating it. So shoot me an email and I will get back to you. And again, there's some simple strategies that you can start today to get out of this lower cross syndrome. All right, thank you for watching. And as always, make it happen. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.